Happy to be joined by Mayor Freddie O'Connell, Mayor of Nashville. I wish it was under different circumstances. Mr. Mayor, thank you for making the time. I know it's an incredibly busy time for you this Monday in the aftermath of what occurred over the course of the weekend. Thanks for being here, Freddie.
Well, glad to, Matt. I know you've kept your listeners informed, and we really appreciate that because this is having access to high quality information in the wake of a disaster is incredibly important for everyone's safety, everyone's access to resources. So really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, it's a time to remind ourselves that, we can debate politics, we can debate policy, we can talk all of that till the cows come home. But when it matters most, we need to be here for our neighbors and our loved ones in and around Middle Tennessee, particularly in Davidson County. Give us a sense of what you have seen, what you've been able to assess, and what we know about these storms that obviously were devastating and deadly Saturday afternoon and evening.
Yeah, and the path I traveled personally, and then knowing what the whole of government and the incredible partners we've got, not just in our nonprofit, but our state and federal partners as well. Everyone's been active here because we know Nashville was not the only community impacted. We saw I was actually in touch with Mayor Pitts in Clarksville early before we had even been through the tornado process, and we were activated through TEMA, supporting them with EMS and medic resources. And then, like probably a lot of Nashvillians, I heard the sirens go off and got alerts on my phone, and we actually, after 2020, got a real tornado shelter, and it was one of those things that feels like a good decision now because that's where our family spent the next period of time until the warning had expired. And then as I was in there starting to see where the path of the storm was taking it and what the severity of the warning was, and watching it become a tornado emergency as it headed up into Hendersonville, we knew that it was very likely to be pretty devastating. So I got over to the Emergency Operations Center as soon as it was safe enough to be out on the roads for this purpose, just to see what we knew and understood. And unfortunately, by the time I got there, we had already confirmed 2 of the 3 fatalities, and by later in that evening, we knew that we had 3 Nashvillians killed by the storm. So that was the hardest part of the entire day, is knowing that you've had not just the devastation of a tornado, but tragic loss of life as a result of a natural disaster. And so kind of spent the evening just making sure that we had complete understanding of where the damage was worst. I touched base with several council members personally that evening, checking on the status of things kind of in the northern parts of Nashville and Davidson County. And we had lots of reports of photos and videos coming in, lots of personal accounts. And so most of that first period, while it was dark out and still had pretty bad weather, we were just focused on safety and making sure we understood if anybody else was at risk. And so far this morning, as we're talking, I guess the somewhat positive news is we have not documented any additional fatalities or serious injuries. Mostly now we're assessing property damage. So by Sunday morning, when the sun came up, I did get out to a part of Madison where some of the damage was worst. And, we were there on the ground, checking in on people at a personal sort of door-to-door level, and, making sure people understood all of the safety precautions, because in the area that was hardest hit, you really had power lines kind of literally tangled up in people's homes that weren't even always in their original positions, right? And so as people were trying to recover belongings, we tried to make sure urban search and rescue and fire department personnel and police personnel with real equipment were there instead of people with chainsaws trying to access stuff, just because you want people to be safe. There are live wire scenarios, and that's what most of the road closures were about, was electrical equipment that really was crossing the road, like things that were worse than a tree down. So I want to give incredible credit to first responders. We had police and fire out that night. Of course, NES and NDOT both had their crews out And all of those response teams were focused on people's safety. And then, the other hard part about yesterday was, though the day was full of sunshine and the weather was relatively nice, by the time the sun set, we knew it was going to get very cold last night, which it did. So we had not just the American Red Cross shelter site set up at the Madison Community Center. We also had an emergency weather overflow shelter set up, operated by Metro Social Services. And so, just trying to make sure people had safe places to be. I think Nashville generally responds very well to these scenarios, though, that I think people understand that if a road's closed, it's for good reason. And
right.
So we had pretty good response from the public. And I will say, too, I was very, very pleased by the level of offers of assistance. And so that's one thing I want to be very clear about is we have a very good volunteer organizations active in disaster VOAD system here in Nashville. And so they're already up and running with a great online resource. It's just NashvilleResponds.com. And that's one thing I'm especially proud of, is literally how Nashville responds. So we had whole of government there, but if you visit NashvilleResponds.com, it's where you can request assistance if you need it. If you're need temporary shelter, if you need other forms of assistance, it's the one-stop shop to go request that. And then if you want to make donations, we've got a brand new model for financial assistance from disaster set up with partnership with United Way and Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee. And that is all there. And then their Hands on Nashville, as a part of the effort, is going to be putting up volunteer opportunities as well. So it's not only a way for people who have been impacted by the tornado to find assistance there, but it's also a way for the general public to jump in and participate and be a part of the response. And so, I'll just share with you. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Mayor, that, it occurs to me as you're talking, relating some of what you've seen in the stories, that for you as mayor, it has to be the worst of days and the best of days. Obviously, you're assessing property damage, material loss. You're also assessing injury, and unfortunately, in the Madison situation at Nesbitt Lane, 3 fatalities. But you're also watching Nashville at its best in the aftermath of these storms, as people come together, as Middle Tennessee comes together to try to help their neighbors.
Well, and you said it up front. I mean, what I have observed, and this is true of Tennessee broadly, I think, is in a crisis, there are no enemies, right?
That's right.
We have all come together. I was in touch with Mayor Pitts in Clarksville, but after that, I was in touch with Mayors Brown and Clary in Gallatin and Hendersonville, respectively. I've been in touch with the mayors of Springfield and Sumner County, and this is what we're supposed to do. We had very good contact with the governor's office. We had very good contact with Congressman Green and Congressman Rose's office. We had very good contact with Senator Haggerty's office. I mean, all of the things that you want to see with not just Nashville, but Tennessee and frankly, the United States at its best, is when everybody is focused on helping people through crisis. And we've seen exactly that. And to your point, I couldn't be prouder of our local government's response. We have that great VOAD system. We do have that great interaction with state and federal partners. But I mean, watching at the Emergency Operations Center, our Office of Emergency Management, our firefighters, our police, the Department of Emergency Communications, which handled all the dispatch activity through that moment, our Department of Transportation out there, clearing trees and keeping roads safe and helping with detours, our local utility NES out there, working not just through the aftermath of the storm, but through the cold last night, to the point where we've gone down from 45,000 to just, when I woke up this morning, just 6,000 people still out of power after a tornado that bad is pretty impressive.
I was gonna circle back to that. And so the figure that as we talk, and just in the interest of disclosure, Freddie's day is so busy, we're talking just before I actually start the show. So you'll be hearing this a little bit later, but as we sit here just before noon, we're at around 6,000 for NES. Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
That's great news. I mean, I know for the 6,000 that are without power, if you're listening on a radio somewhere, I'm sure Freddie's working hard to get your power back on, but that's good news. That's a better figure than I thought that we would have on a Monday morning.
No, and that's full credit to NES and their line crews. I mean, they truly have been out around the clock. I mean, I saw some of them last night when I was driving around, and it was, it's very I will say it's unsettling to be out after a day where it has felt like, okay, the storm has moved on and it's bright and sunny, and then the sun sets, temperatures dropping, and then you get into a part of the city that you can tell the tornado's been through here because it is just so dark, right? I mean, you can see the roads are less safe, the areas are less safe, and so, and credit to them because they had a substation that was damaged, and they had several poles that were down completely, or, I personally saw several where the top half had just snapped off and the top of the pole was dangling there right over the road, just held up by the wires it was still connected to. But, that kind of damage is, the fact that they can get all of that stuff replaced in just a matter of hours in some locations, but also know that they're dealing with a substation damage. But, we even had our parks department. Their staff were on site with the American Red Cross shelter, ITS, our, basically technology division, supporting all of the incredible stuff that's happening at the Emergency Operations Center. We had legal and finance involved because we did declare a state of emergency. And one of the things that happens here is you do that because we do expect, it's not a guarantee, but given where we are on state and federal conversations, we expect that there will be and I expect FEMA will get engaged and this will be a disaster declaration. But, Codes is out there today doing property assessments. General Services is out looking at public buildings. Our HR division checked in on employees in Metro because we know we had several Metro employees who live or have family in the path of the storm. And our mayor's office team was incredible. And I guess, again, it's a bittersweet thing to know that you've had to have gotten fairly good at disaster response at this point. But, Nashville has certainly endured a lot over the past couple of years. And so,
well, and you hate the idea of testing those services in real time, but at the same time, have you had an opportunity to process that? Is it too early to do that, to kind of go back? I know that you'll have a chance at some point as mayor to go over all of that, to make sure that everything flowed as it should. I don't imagine you've had that chance yet.
Not yet. We had a quick postmortem this morning. There was a meeting out at the EOC today, and with everything like this, the Office of Emergency Management does do an after-action assessment of things. We'll do our own in the mayor's office because we want to make sure we perform to the best of our ability and improve for next time if there's anywhere where we came up short. But the responses, the feedback we've had from the public at this point have been encouraging about the overall response. And again, credit to everybody I just named. This was not, look, I had the opportunity a few weeks ago as a part of the transition process to go out and visit the Emergency Operations Center. And as I was standing there, I was thinking, it'd be really nice not to have to come out here at any point.
No, right.
And
no, I get it.
We're not even through the first 100 days, and there we are with it activated. And, so you want to be serious and responsible and focus on people's safety and well-being through all this. And credit to the teams that were out there being a part of this. And I know for your listening audience, it's just, we were having conversations this morning. It was just 3 years ago. And, thinking about our older daughter and her memories of that night. It's just tough because if you live through it once and you're anywhere close to the path of the damage again, it feels like, oh gosh, we just did this. And
thinking about the 6 that passed, the 3 in Clarksville, and obviously the 3 here in Davidson County in the Madison area, Joseph Dalton, Floridima Perez, and her son Anthony Mendez, killed in the same area on Nesbitt Lane. Thinking about those folks and thinking more broadly about the giving nature of our community, as we wrap up, Freddie, tell us what we can do, how we can help specifically for those families, or how we can more broadly help. What is your advice to the citizens listening right now that want to lend a hand?
That one URL I'll just keep going back to is NashvilleResponds.com, and we know Nashville will respond, and we've already had a lot of interest in that. I did get to be out there and visit with the husband and father who lost not just everything, including his home, but those two members of his family. So it's really, really tragic. And Matt, I apologize. I do have to jump.
No, I know you do. I know you do. Well, look, thank you, Mayor. We'll talk again very soon, and good luck as you continue to clean up and lead those efforts. Thank you.